Now, this next clip is a classic example of what gaslighting, manipulation, and deceivement comes from the NATO government. There are evidence everywhere to prove that when Gorbachev in 1990 had an agreement with the USA, that agreement was they would not move 1 inch to the east. But listen to the words that he's using and listen to what he says about not wanting to make a peaceful agreement with Russia. Listen to it. And this is the reason why we don't trust our government. And this is the reason why lots of other countries around the world do not want to make agreements with the USA and NATO, because they break them. And they break them on their terms. And they try and go in and fool the public and their citizens that they are the good guys. When in fact, we are the bad guys.
And yet Kofi Annan, the head of the UN at the time, called it an illegal invasion. Years later, you're attacking Putin for an illegal invasion. Do you see the double standard? A lot of people say NATO pledged not to expand after the Cold War. The then US Secretary of State James Baker is often quoted as saying that it would not move 1 inch further east. You've said in recent interviews that such a view is, quote, pure propaganda. But Mikhail Gorbachev has called NATO expansion not just a mistake, but, quote, a violation of the spirit of the statements and assurances made to us in 1990. Is Gorbachev a propagandist too?
This is a myth spread by Russia that during the negotiations on German reunification, they were promised that NATO, or for that sake the EU, wouldn't enlarge eastwards. That was never promised, and recently...
Mikhail Gorbachev, I called this a big mistake from the very beginning. It was definitely a violation of the spirit of the statements and assurances made to us in 1990. Is he lying?
We are in the lucky situation that documents from these negotiations have now been declassified, so we can see what was actually discussed, what was promised,
Gorbachev lying?
And nothing was promised.
So Mikhail Gorbachev, who was there at the time, you weren't, is he imagining things?
Yeah, but I wasn't there. I don't know what he thinks, but I can tell you, this wasn't promised.
Okay. Do you accept that there's no military solution to the crisis in Ukraine, that Western governments are not about to go to war with Vladimir Putin's Russia?
Yeah, there's no military solution. The only problem is that President Putin thinks there is a military solution.
NATO doesn't?
We want a political solution.
But NATO's been ramping up all sorts of military activities in the region.
No, NATO as such is not engaged in Ukraine. What we have done is to fulfill our core task, to protect our allies.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question. Does it bother you that you're training people who may be working with neo-Nazis?
No, we don't. We don't.
USA Today did a big report on the Azov battalion, 900 members strong. Their symbol is borrowed from the Waffen-SS. They're on the front line of the fighting.
Yeah, but we don't cooperate with Nazis.
Does that bother you?
Let me stress that.
Okay, does that bother you that there are groups with neo-Nazi insignias fighting on the front line?
What bothers me is the Russian propaganda.
Okay, but the Russian propaganda, USA Today, last time I checked, was not a Russian propaganda. It was an American center-right newspaper.
Yeah, but let me stress once again, we do not cooperate with Nazis.
Okay. You referred to the Russian illegal invasion and annexation of Crimea. You've called it a violation of the UN Charter. Some people might say that people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, given you supported the illegal invasion and occupation of Iraq back in 2003. How does that work?
Yeah, now you're speaking to me personally, because NATO was not involved.
To clarify, you in your role as Prime Minister of Denmark threw your weight behind the illegal invasion and occupation of Iraq. You didn't seem to worry about the UN Charter then?
No, because it was not illegal. It was based on...
It wasn't illegal?
It was based on UN principles, and our argument for participating in that operation was that Saddam Hussein didn't comply with numerous UN resolutions.
And yet Kofi Annan, the head of the UN at the time, called it an illegal invasion. Years later, you're attacking Putin for an illegal invasion. Do you see the double standard?
No, it's not double standard.
Libya, NATO took the lead, the military lead role in March 2011 in Libya, in an air war that ended up toppling Colonel Gaddafi's regime, which was followed then by his pretty grisly death in the desert. Is NATO now in the regime change business?
No, we are not. We fulfilled fully the mandate given by the UN Security Council.
Did that mandate include toppling Gaddafi?
No, but NATO was not part of that. That was done by ground forces, freedom fighters in Libya.
You can open Pandora's box in Libya, but you're not responsible for what comes out of it.
The international community failed to help the new authorities to build a new society from scratch.
But it wasn't just the international community. You called NATO's operation in Libya a great success, quote, a model for the future. You even predicted at the start of the war that there was, quote, no possibility that the country would be overrun by so-called Islamist militias. Well, it has been. The country's in chaos, beset by violence. It's proved to be anything but a great success. Some would say it's time for NATO to apologise.
Yeah, but the fact is that the military campaign as such was a great success.
You were asked in March 2011, is there a risk of there being an Islamist presence in Libya? Quote, your response, no, I don't think that's a possibility.
Yeah, but
so
now there is an Islamist presence. As I said to you, the international community failed to follow up after a very successful military campaign.
And in hindsight, you could look back and say, we were wrong to do it in the way we did it, because it produced the chaos in Libya today.
No, I won't say that.